acknowledge that when a call went out for volunteers, I said, sure. When I said, sure, I'll do any of the above. When I was asked to do the talk this evening, I said, sure. I didn't realize the Torah portion tonight was Vayeira. Just to acknowledge, Solomon Arnie, I looked at Rabbi Wiki. So this portion has the most words, not the most letters or verses, just the most words of any portion in Genesis. I am absolutely not a Torah scholar, but I want to do just a quick recap, just in case any of you aren't sensing why I had some reticence when I realized this was the week's Torah portion. So there's just a few things that happen in this portion. Some pretty substantial things in Jewish history and mythology. So Abraham has 3 visitors to start off with. They let Sarah know that she's going to bear a child. That was pretty big news. Abraham questions God's decision to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's some subsequent negotiations that take place over how many good men. 50, 45, 40, 30. The negotiations go on. I'm doing a pretty quick recap. Lot then has 2 visitors. Now we could get into discussion about who these visitors were, Lot's, Abraham's, etc. That would get us way off. I'm going to make this fast. Lot then bargains with Sodomites. Daughters, a little bargaining there. That could get me way off. I'm going to stay on track here. Then there's the flight of Lot and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Substantial event, including his wife turning into a pillar of salt, and the daughters then sleeping with Lot, and each bearing a child. Abraham then passes Sarah off as his sister, not the first time he does this, to Abimelech this time. Abimelech then bargains with both God and Abraham. We then get into the birth of Isaac, another substantial event. There's then the expulsion of Hagar, closely aligned with the birth of Isaac. She wanders in the desert. God makes a pretty substantial promise to her that he will make of Ishmael a great nation. Wow, this doesn't just impact the Jews. There's dispute and negotiation over some wells between Abraham and Abimelech. There's the binding of Isaac and God's promise to Abraham. Whew. There's a lot that goes on in this Torah portion. So I thought, I belong to a meditative synagogue. And kind of like Elizabeth acknowledged earlier, I thought, let me just think quietly and meditate a bit, and maybe something will come to me in terms of a focus. A place in all of this where I want to spend some time with the community to which I belong. That was useful but rather limited. So I then found myself, fortunately, in dialogue with Jean. And, there's something about dialogue, about that dialectic, that we started looking at themes and larger meanings, and not to get bogged down in the details, but we were looking for connections that spanned the portion and that connected the portion to our lives today. And I really have to credit him with this piece and this recognition that there's a lot of negotiation that goes on in this Torah portion. I mean, think about this. Abraham's negotiating with God. Sarah's negotiating with Abraham and God. Abimelech negotiates. Lot negotiates. Lot makes some really awful offers, by the way. Abimelech negotiates. I mean, everybody, Hagar negotiates. Everybody is negotiating one thing or another in this. And it got me thinking, and I know I'm going to digress for just a moment here, because, as Jews, we love tradition. And our rabbi has established something of a tradition here, I think, of examining the Hebrew meanings of specific words. got curious. What was the Hebrew for negotiation? Negotiate. Oh, I think you're going to like this. I did. So, negotiation is masa umatan. Negotiate is nasa vanatan. Now, I'm sure there are many of you here whose Hebrew is better than is mine. But I got really excited about this because these aren't single words. These are constructs. So what are the constructs? Well, masa has a number of meanings. This is often the case. But masa is a load, a burden, and prophecy. Matan, that part of the masahu and matan, is alms or charity or giving. So that's the noun, negotiation. The verb to negotiate, nasa, to lift, bear, sustain, endure, to marry, forgive, and destroy. Natan, give, permit, deliver up. What struck me is that our rabbi often talks about that we can't just take the good. There's a balance that needs to be struck, that all of it brings meaning into life. And what struck me is that, I don't know about you all, but I find myself negotiating a lot, probably a lot more than I'd like to. And negotiate, even in the English, has other meanings. We're not just negotiating with ourselves, with our family members, our partners, our bosses. Oftentimes negotiate also means to navigate, to negotiate a path, to negotiate a way. And so I wanted to invite everyone to take a few minutes and just within yourself think about and ask yourself the question, what am I negotiating? With whom? Take a few minutes. Feel free to close your eyes and just think, what is it that I'm negotiating? When you feel like you've had sufficient time to gather your thoughts and identify maybe one or more things that you're negotiating, who you're negotiating with, I'm going to invite you to turn to 3 or 4 people around you and just share what it is that you're negotiating. Who are you negotiating with? What's that about? What do you hope comes out of it? Go ahead. We'll take a few minutes for this. got to tell you, it's fascinating from up here, the hum that is going over this room and the sort of up and down of the conversations. I'm certain the conversations you're having could continue for a while, and hopefully they can continue downstairs at the ONIG. But I'm wondering if some of you would be willing to share some things that came up in your discussions. Is there anything that came up that was sort of an aha moment where you found, oh, we're negotiating some similar things, or a recognition of something new? I can hand over this mic easily. Anyone want to share?
So, I'm so loud, it's so loud. So, this was a really good exercise, because I always thought negotiating had to be an act between two people, and a give and a take. And when we started the conversation in our little group back here, it really came down to negotiating is about being aligned. That we work through our day, every moment we breathe through the day, we're constantly negotiating with ourselves. So that's what came through our conversation, and I'd never really given it that sort of thought. So this was a great exercise. Thank you.
Ricky, thanks. Other observations, things that got shared or brought up in your conversations?
So, you're right, it is loud. One of the things that came up in our team, in our group, was the whole idea of your approach to negotiation. It's whether, in some instances, we hear about Lot and what he had to offer in his bargaining right, versus Abraham walking in faith, not even knowing what the other end of that bargain was going to be, would be sacrifice Isaac. And it's whether you negotiate in good faith or in bad faith. And I think two key words that kind of came to mind as well were that in one instance, one of the words was it's uplifting, and the other side was a burden. And is it that we go through life, perhaps sometimes we have partners, right? They heard the word marry. So talks about relationships to me in my mind. And so the idea is, are there instances in your lives where one part of the aspect of negotiation is that one or the other has a burden and the other party needs to be there to help uplift? Just a thought, to entertain.
Anybody else? Thanks. Well, I hope this was useful and kind of a different way of thinking about this Torah portion and thinking about day-to-day life, major events, internal processes, and how we negotiate or navigate the journey that we're on. Blessings. Shabbat shalom.